Hi, I'm Paula from Happy Yoga Wales, and this is a Yin Yoga practice for legs. And this practice is suitable for absolutely everybody, including complete beginners. You don't need any props at all. And I'm here today on the beautiful island of Anglesey in North Wales. It's autumn, but it's really warm, a little bit breezy, and yeah, I hope you enjoy the view. So we're going to start today in a child's pose. So come on down, bring the big toes together and take the knees out a little bit wider than the hips. And reach the hands forwards and then settle down. So you can bring your forehead to the block or to the mat or a cushion if you don't have blocks at home. And just settle in here, let the shoulders relax away from the ears and let the hips be heavy, sinking back towards the heels. And we're going to be in all of our poses today just about 2 minutes. So we're not holding anything for too long, but working through quite a few different poses that target different areas of the legs. So just allowing the breath to settle here. If you can, breathing in and out of the nose. And sending that breath all the way down to the belly. Softening just a little bit more through the face, the shoulders, all the way down through the torso, into the hips, relaxing the thighs, the calves, and even the soles of the feet and the toes. And our lower body, our legs and our feet are associated with the root chakra and this sense of being grounded, being safe. And so if you choose, you might want to say the affirmation today: I am grounded. I am grounded. And then taking one more big breath in here, fill all the way up, let the belly expand. And exhale, sigh it out of the mouth. And then just walk the fingertips back towards the hips, slowly bringing the head up. So moving nice and slowly in between our poses. And we're going to make our way into a butterfly pose. So you can sit up on a block here. I don't have any today. I'm on a slight slope here, so if I turn this way, my hips will be a little bit higher than my feet. And that just allows you to lift out of the low back. So bringing the soles of the feet together, holding on to wherever is comfortable, the shins, the ankles, and maybe the feet. And then reach tall through the crown of the head. Relax the shoulders, take a breath in. And then just let yourself soften. So you can bring the hands down to the ground, or just rest them wherever feels right for you. Allow the shoulders to melt away from the ears and the chin to just tuck in gently. And just noticing in our yin practice whether these sensations move and shift. So you might come into a pose and feel sensation or a stretch in one area, but as the body starts to open up, as the fascia releases, that sensation might move. And this only really happens with time and with stillness, which is why I'm such a big fan of Yin Yoga. For our last few breaths here, just seeing if you can soften a little bit more. Again, scanning all the way from the crown of the head and just noticing Where might you be holding that little bit of tension? Where can you soften and let go? And then take a big breath in here, fill all the way up. And let it go. Lovely. Okay, so walk those hands back towards the hips, just slowly coming up. Keep the chin tucked in, no rush. And then just help the knees in, so bring the hands to the outside of the knees, bringing them back in towards centre. It might feel nice here just to take the legs out in front of you for a moment before we come into our next pose. So from here we're going to be moving into a straddle pose. So taking the legs out wide, and again I'm going to stay seated this way so my hips are a little bit higher, and just pushing the bottom back so we're tilting the pelvis forward. Again, allows us to lift out of the low back and just have that little bit of space. And the legs don't need to be super wide here, so just find a comfortable place where you can feel the start of that stretch. And again, reach out of the low back, reach tall through the crown of the head, take a big breath in, and then maybe start to round forwards. You can maybe bring the forearms down to the ground, or if that's too far away, popping them on a block, or even a chair here, or a few cushions might work well for you. So wherever you are, just soften into the pose, relaxing the feet, relaxing the ankles. And sending that breath down into the belly. So in a hatha yoga practice, or even in a traditional exercise class, fitness class, you'll draw the toes back towards the shins or the knees as a way of protecting the knees and making sure we don't overstretch. But in our yin practice, we're only going to that first edge of the stretch. So we're never pushing our bodies, which means we can relax. We don't need to take some of these precautions that we would in different styles of stretching. And then when you're ready, take a big breath in here and let it go. And then using the hands, especially if you're folded forward, keep the chin tucked in and just walk the hands back towards the hips, releasing that stretch. And again, using the hands to help you, lifting them in one at a time. And we're going to make our way into a similar pose, but just targeting a different version, or different area, of the hamstrings. So bringing the legs in front of you this time for a caterpillar pose, or in hatha yoga, the seated forward fold. So the feet can be about hip distance. And again, reach out of the low back. You can bend the knees here, even rolling a blanket and popping it behind the knees for a little bit more support. And then just start to walk forwards if you've got the space to do that. Keeping the chin drawn in. And then when you can't go any further, just softening and rounding into the pose. And if you don't have any props, what I like to do sometimes is just slide my hands underneath my knees. And that just gives me, again, a little bit more support. It makes me feel like the legs can relax without straining and overstretching. So it's really about finding what works for you and your own body. And again, we're here for about 2 minutes in this pose. You might find that as you hold this pose for time, or any of our poses, as the body starts to open up, maybe you naturally just want to fold a little bit more, and find a little bit more of a stretch, going a little bit further into the pose. But always moving mindfully and never ever pushing. And so taking our last breath here. When you're ready, inhale all the way into the belly if you can. And exhale. Just as before, using those hands, slowly unwinding, supporting yourself back up. And stacking the shoulders above the hips. Nice. Okay, so from here, we're just going to bring the feet in and come into a saddle pose. So if saddle isn't comfortable, this can be quite intense on the knees, then bring some blocks or cushions or pillows underneath the hips so that you can sit up a little bit higher. So otherwise, we're going to bring the knees about hip distance and just rolling the calves out of the way. And then sitting down in between the feet. So the shins and the ankles and the feet are all in one straight line here. So the ankle isn't doing anything funky, any twisting or anything. So you're just checking that all your toes are on the ground, everything's a nice straight line. So you can stay here. This might be quite intense already. If it's too intense, like I say, just lift yourself up, pop something underneath your seat. If you're okay there and feels like maybe you've got a little bit more space to explore, then you can start to lean back onto the hands. And just lifting and tucking the tailbone under, so we're rotating the hips, the pelvis backwards this time. Lengthening through the quads, the front of the thighs, and a little bit into the hips. You might even, if you're very open, come on down to the elbows. That's about as far as I'm going to go today. You could even lie all the way back if that's comfortable for you. And if you're here, just making sure, or wherever you are, making sure the upper body's relaxed. We're not creating tension as we move deeper into these poses. And even though we're aiming for stillness in our poses, remembering that it's absolutely okay to change your mind. And if you decide you've gone too far, if the sensation becomes too much, then just coming back up, like I'm gonna do, into a slightly less deep version. Just taking a few more breaths here. And when you're ready, take a big breath in. And release. So if you're down on your back or on your elbows, just coming up mindfully, so keeping the spine as straight as you can. So placing both hands onto the ground and draw the belly button in and then lift up with a little bit of strength. So we don't want to twist as we come out from that version of the pose. And from here, we're all just going to lift the seat and bring the feet over to one side. And bringing the feet round in front of you. And it might feel good here to take those feet out a little bit wider, so about as wide as your yoga mat, and just leaning back on the hands with the fingers facing forwards. Let both knees come on over to one side. And then moving back in the other direction. Okay, so we're going to come down onto our backs and just take a couple of poses before a short relaxation. So we're going to come into a Bananavasana pose, so targeting the whole outside of the legs. So from here, we're just going to take the feet over to the right corner of the mat, and then pressing the elbows into the ground, lift the shoulder girdle, the whole upper body, and just take the shoulders over to the right as well. So your feet and your shoulders are both slightly to the right of centre. The hips are right in the middle of the mat and facing straight up towards the ceiling or the lovely blue sky if you're outside like me. And you can stay here. So this might feel like enough of a stretch or sensation along the outside of that left leg. If you want a little bit more, cross the left ankle over the right, maybe even take those arms overhead. But again, really softening, so our fascia, our connective tissues, they take the stretch when the muscles are relaxed. If we push too far, then that isn't able to happen. We're not able to relax. And just softening a little bit more for our last few breaths here. Feel free to close the eyes if you haven't already. And then taking a big breath in. And exhale it out. So bringing the arms down if they're overhead, and just uncrossing the ankles, bend the knees a little bit here so the feet come closer to the hips. You don't need to open the eyes if you're enjoying keeping them closed, then by all means keep them closed. And then when you feel ready, we're just going to take the feet over towards the left corner of the mat. So again, less really is more here, so we're not going to our extreme. Pressing the elbows into the ground, lifting up the upper body and taking your shoulders over to the left. And then softening here, maybe taking the arms overhead again, maybe crossing right ankle over left. This is the first class that I've filmed on the beach. It was very nice, but we do get sand everywhere. And when you're ready, take a big breath in. And sigh that out. Again, if the arms are overhead, just sliding them down here. And crossing the feet, bringing them in towards the hips. And just take the feet out a little bit wider than your hips here. Shuffling the shoulder blades underneath so they're flat on the back. And then just pick up the head, tuck the chin in slightly so the back of the neck's nice and long. And then take the arms out wide like a T, so reaching away from the body. And just take the knees over to the right. So both knees to the right side of your mat. And they'll be kind of staggered here. If that isn't comfortable, you can always bring the left knee on top of the right into more of a traditional twist. So if you're here with the knees staggered, you could always pick up the right foot and just place that on the outside seam of your left knee or thigh. So we're not going to hold this one quite as long. It's always nice to end our practice with a twist. I find it just lengthens everything, allows the energy to flow that little bit more freely. And maybe even gazing over to the left here in the opposite direction to the knees. And then drawing the belly button in. If the right leg is over the left, just uncrossing the ankles, bringing the knees back through centre, gazing towards the ceiling or the sky, and bringing the knees over towards the left. And again, just gazing towards the right if that feels comfortable. And either keeping the knees wide or stacking the right knee on top of the left. And so breathing deeply, really softening here into our last pose. And then taking a big breath in. And exhale, sigh out. Uncrossing the legs if they were crossed and bringing the knees back through centre. Just taking any other little movements here that feel good. And when you're ready, taking those legs out long, finding your Shavasana or any other version of our relaxation pose that feels good for you today. Take a big breath in here together and let it all go. And saying one more time to ourselves, just as we come into stillness, I am grounded. And without changing anything, just deepening the breath. Maybe finding some little movements, circling the ankles and the wrists. Noticing how you feel. And when you're ready, just bending both knees, bringing the feet in towards the hips. And then rolling onto one side. Just take a moment here today, pausing in our fetal position. Maybe taking one more little scan of the body. Noticing how it feels compared to the start of our practice. And when you're ready, pressing your way up to a seat. So sitting in any comfortable position, stacking the shoulders above the hips, just rolling them back here, sliding the shoulder blades down, and reaching tall through the crown of the head. Taking a big breath in, bringing hands to heart center, and exhale, sigh out. Well, thank you so much for practicing with me, doing this yin practice for legs. I hope you enjoyed it. If you're watching this on YouTube, please do go ahead and like this video and subscribe if you haven't already. And then head on over to happyyoga.wales, where you'll find lots more practices for the physical body, as well as some meditations, all sorts of things over there. And I look forward to seeing you again very soon on the mat.